Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and this is an incredibly timely conversation. I'm thrilled and honored to be here with 4 panelists who are actually all foreign-born founders themselves, and now they have dedicated their careers and lives to supporting individuals like you who are building and really contributing to this country and our innovation economy. So all of us up here respect all of you and know that this country needs more of you and needs to be supporting all of you to make sure that we thrive as a nation. And so today, we're not going to go through the ABCs of immigration. We're not going to go through that alphabet soup of what visa categories exist. You all can look that up yourselves using ChatGPT or any other internet browser. Today, we're going to do more of a 301 panel. This is not 101. We want to be able to give you all a sense of what's going on in the ecosystem right now. And you all see a lot of headlines, but we're going to dig in a little bit deeper. And then we're going to talk about navigating the process and how you go through that step by step and get some advice. So first, my name is Danielle Goldman, and I run the Build Fellowship, and I'm founder of Open Avenues Foundation. We have a cap-exempt H-1B solution for folks who lose the lottery. So you can talk to me about that after, but this is all about our awesome panelists today, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves by giving us one thing that they are excited about that they're building right now for many of you in the audience. Let's start with Nitin and go down the line.
Nitin, Pachisia. I started Unshackled Ventures about 11 years ago. I'm most excited about building an alternative to venture capital to enable even more immigrant founders start even more companies.
Great. I'm Xiao Wang. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Boundless. Started about 8.5 years ago. I've been helping over 150,000 people now go through the process. What I'm really excited to build right now is a seamless connection between immigration and all of your other HRIS and ATS and all the other tech tools out there so that it is not a separate thing that you have to think about.
My name is Yana Albrecht. I'm a founding partner of Bay Immigration Law. Started 20 years ago in Palo Alto, Silicon Valley. I'm excited about saving time and trouble to all the founders and our clients to think about their amazing product, and we'll take care of your immigration needs.
Hi, everybody. My name is Düden Freeman. I am an immigrant and a former American diplomat, and I'm also the founder of Visas 101. What I'm really excited about is those 240 seconds that founders and immigrants get to have at the visa window, because those 240 seconds really can make or break your dreams. And I'm here to ensure that we can all make our dreams possible.
Amazing. We are going to start with a little context setting, and we know that the headlines today are terrifying, and there's lots of fear-mongering going on. And I want to understand more, and folks in the room want to understand, is this real, or is this perception? And Xiao, I would love to start with you, just to understand from your perspective, what is this fear warranted from folks, and how have you seen things change from your view, and is there anything specific that has been real in terms of the shifts from the government?
Absolutely. Someone had to remind me recently that we are not yet at year 1 of this administration, and we have 3 more to go, right? And so at a high level, at the highest level, this is we can assume that there's going to be increased scrutiny on immigration. However, the pathways are still there, right? The classic pathways that you hear about today are still existing, and denial rates are still like at historic rates, right? 2 to 3% for H-1Bs, et cetera. But this administration is also very much like a front page 95 concept of like what you see is what you get. And they've been very clear about what they want to see. And so if you break down what is happening, they've been very clear that they value talent that's already in the US over ones that are not. Right? So the $100,000 fee, however it gets challenged in courts, have already changed dramatically the amount of behavior from companies willing to sponsor people who are currently outside the country. Right? The administration has been very clear that they are against these multinational, typically from India, IT consulting firms that have been taking up a lot of the lottery. And they've been very clear about that they don't want people who work in trust and safety and compliance and anything affecting free speech. Right? They're very clear that they won't want anyone posting social media things that like are against either this administration or anything that is on their whims. And so like in some ways, you kind of have to take it and also they're clear that they want to prioritize higher paying roles and more senior roles over more junior roles. So if you like look at it all together, it's like there are clear avenues that this administration, I'm assuming over the next 3 years too, will continue to amplify, right? If you are a highly paid, senior member that, keeps their mouth shut online and is currently in the U.S., the road's pretty straightforward, right? And this has been before. However, other avenues that they have been addressing are the ones that are going to be challenging. So the folks who are going to benefit are more likely going to be, like PhD in advanced studies degrees in the U.S., right? And also like companies that are willing to sponsor higher paying roles in the U.S. And then anything else is going to encounter a lot more scrutiny, as we've seen.
Nitin, from your perspective, when it comes to fear for founders, a lot of the fear can come from a fear that investors will not be interested in taking this risk or going down this journey with founders. What's your thought on that?
What I'm seeing is people channel fear in different ways. Founding a company itself is a very scary endeavor. People who've made this trip, leaving their home countries, coming here to the US, they've already overcome a lot of fear in that. So what I'm seeing is practically clearing of noise and signal. The entrepreneurs are happy to stay in their jobs or academic careers, and the ones who really want to build are not worried about what's going to happen to my visa. Instead, what they're doing is asking for, what's the best way for me to minimize the risk of immigration as I take this step? And so they're surrounding themselves with better resources, more informed people, folks like ours and One Way. And the more you surround yourself with knowledge, the more prepared you are, and therefore you're increasing the odds of success of your company and immigration. So I'm seeing embracing the fear to channel it in action to get to the right answers.
I like that. Yana, so many firms around the country and immigration lawyers are your front line right now, and you are having to shift strategies to work with folks to navigate the ever-changing political landscape. What has changed for you when you're giving advice to folks or when you're evaluating what visa pathways are open?
Well, we don't have a one problem. It's a set of problems we have under the current administration. And again, this is very adversarial immigration climate. That's not a surprise. What we have a pretty large sample of all kind of filing, O1s, LHs, EB1s, that we can work with. So we are learning from our experience, but we're also trying to adjust to what's happening right now. And so it's been mentioned here that fear is actually a very kind of subjective thing, but so what attorney does, attorney helps to lead you through the path to your immigration goals. So what we are learning to work and to survive in the current environment. So we created the team of our professionals who are flexible intellectually and creative enough to deal with this new avalanche of requests for additional evidence and all that. And so I guess with our help, with help of professionals here, you can do it. Don't be discouraged.
So you're seeing an increase in requests for evidence. Have you seen increase in denials rates as well?
Not so much. So we fight it to the end, and sometimes, so the way it happens, sometimes the decision is so bad that we don't even have to refile. We want to bring it to the attention of Administrative Appeal Office so they can see and hold their offices to the standard of adjudication that we want to see from them. So I don't think the avalanche of RFEs necessarily means the denials. Our rating is pretty much the same. We get cases approved. It takes longer. It's a more kind of unnerving process. It's always been, but it's apparently getting worse now.
What's the tactic from the administration? Do you think it's to create delays, to create fear, to disincentivize companies? If the denial rates are not increasing, then where is this coming from? Like, what is the intention?
That's a fantastic question. So I wish.
Get inside the head of the executive branch.
I know. Well, I don't think this administration is absolutely against innovation and business growing. No, that's not the case. But the tactic they're using, that's another question.
I mean, when I talked to someone out of the cabinet recently, I mean, like, if you think it's kind of disjointed, the answer is because it is, right? You have people like Stephen Miller in the president's ear, who is very much we're closed, right? Like, we don't need immigrants. And then on the other side, you have David Sachs and Howard Lutnick, who are like, hey, immigrants are really important to the economy. And so in this current climate, what you're seeing are like sort of, things thrown both ways, right? And so that goes back to what you're saying about like having the right partner in your corner to be able to understand when something is, which favors are being given to which faction within the administration to help you figure out what is the best way of being successful through it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Finding the right champions, and that's been the theme from multiple of you. When it comes to the right investors or the right immigration attorney, both are potentially equally as important, who are going to help you navigate the process. Düden, folks don't talk about this enough when it comes to really figuring out the next step after you get the approval and traveling abroad and ensuring that you can go back and forth and get your visa stamp and your passport. From your perspective, what's changed when it comes to the consulates?
So I like to put it in two different terms, right? First of all, the petition that you file with the USCIS, that's the marathon that you're running. Right, it's the long game. You're working with an attorney, they're working to help prepare all the evidence, and you're submitting it. And just because your petition got approved at the USCIS level doesn't mean the game is over. There is a sprint that you have to run, and that is the visa interview. So until, I would say, this most recent administration, if you had a slam dunk of a petition case, right, you're an applicant with no RFEs, you've never been pulled into secondary inspection when you're going through the border, no issues whatsoever in your background, you never overstayed a visa, you've never been arrested, it's a slam dunk of a case. Those visas, when you are at the interview at the embassy or consulate, I would say you don't really need to prepare that much, right? It's a slam dunk of a case. You're just going to go in, they're going to ask you some basic questions, and then they're going to say your visa is approved. I wouldn't say that today. Today, what we're seeing is even if it's a slam dunk of a case, no RFEs, straightforward petition, no issues at the border, if that O1 visa applicant goes into the interview, and typically O1s, they're extraordinary, right? There's a level of arrogance that comes with that, and I don't mean that in a negative way. But if you go into that visa interview and you say, I'm here for my visa stamping, you're going to rub that visa officer the wrong way. So you really need to be able to prepare and ensure that what you want at the end is an approval. You want that officer to talk to you for those 240 seconds and then to say, yes, your visa has been approved. And then you're just going to take a deep breath and you're going to leave the embassy or consulate. If you go in unprepared, now there are a lot of tools in the visa officer's toolkit these days that they can use to deny your visa, delay your visa, And there really isn't that much you can do about it. There is a process you can follow if the petition doesn't get approved. There's an appeals process. There really isn't too much of a venue for an appeal if it's a visa issue. So that's what I would say has changed with this most recent administration.
And what's working at the consulates? I mean, are any visa categories specifically working better than others when it comes to the interview process?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. I worked with an attorney who has been working with us now for some time, and they had a wonderful O1 case, do an interview prep with me. We had to do 2 interview prep sessions. As extraordinary as this person was, they weren't prepared for the visa prep session. So they went back, came back, and then they nailed through the visa interview. They did really well, immediate approval. The second person from that company, they thought, we got this, and they didn't do a prep. And the visa was denied 221G, which is not a permanent denial, if you will, but it's a denial where the embassy or consulate can take as long as they want to, come back to you with a final decision. So what's working is preparing. Even if it's a slam dunk of a case, prepare. Because it's those 240 seconds that can really have a huge impact on your entrepreneurial founding life. So I would say prepare.
I think the theme across all of you right now is surround yourself with the individuals who can help you prepare. So it's the investors, it's the attorneys, and it's the folks who have experience with visa interviews, because you can't over prepare right now in this environment.
And start preparing as early as possible at the very beginning.
Yep, and that goes right into, when we talk in this next section about navigating the journey. Early preparation is something that, folks always have known is nice to have when it comes to putting together your immigration case. But now it might even just be necessary. Yana, are there ways to actually design your case and your immigration journey from an early, even from when you're in college, before you need a visa? What does that look like?
Right. Well, I wouldn't call it design. It looks like a fabricating the case, right? we don't want to go that way. So, but we actually deal with a lot of clients who are not only pre-equity, they're pre-revenue, or pre-customers. So they're very, very early stage. And so for me, the most important piece of advice I can give is to come to us or to other specialists as early as possible. I do believe in organic development of the company, of the business, so you don't have to design anything or to create anything. But if you talk to us, we can explain what kind of criteria you want to meet to qualify for O1 visa, for example. Or if you are talking about intra-company transfers, again, how to arrange or to do your business formation in such a way that you have 2 qualifying entities abroad and in the United States, and so on and so forth. With E2 investor visa, you have to put your money at risk, how to do that. So all these things can be, you don't have to design them. There are ways to do it this way or that way, and for immigration purposes, one of those ways can be more suitable to meet those criteria to deal with that. So that would be my design the case advice. Come as early as possible. Do not change your ways of doing business because your business goal, your product creation is the most important part. We are here to help with immigration, but we are not here to change or to redesign what you have in mind.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so everyone going down the path that that is natural to you and is genuine, not designed. And what about Nitin? How does that apply to coming up with a business strategy and thinking about the traction that you have? Does a company have to think through their immigration process, as they're figuring out their company? Meaning, should they be thinking about whether their traction is weak or early and making a decision about what visa category to go down based on traction, or whether they fundraise or not?
I think building the business and building your immigration case and strategy are two independent things. They obviously affect each other, but they're independent things with their independent strategies. And when I work with our portfolio founders, what I focus on is you should start preparing for your business. Like, entrepreneurship starts years before you start your business. It starts with acts of entrepreneurship where you start learning things, you start connecting with people, you start building your knowledge bases, your networks. And similarly, your immigration strategy can start as early as when you land in the US. But they're two independent things. I wouldn't conflate the two and say you should run your business in a way that it somehow supports your O1 strategy. Like, with the right people will find the right immigration strategy based on how you're building your business. I don't obfuscate the two.
There's definitely folks that think they, are inclined to bootstrap their business, and they don't want to fundraise necessarily or need capital, but they think that raising capital is going to really be an important part of their O1 petition. What do you think about that?
I just think partially, with due respect to attorneys in the room, some of that is messaging that has come from immigration lawyers. If you raise this money, you can be eligible for this. You go to YC, you could be eligible for this. And there's truth to that. However, the founder has to make the choice of is raising that money or going to YC or whatever it is that is being recommended. Is that really the right step for my business? And there's already like a lot of glamorization of raising money from VCs because that's the only real source of early stage capital. But what I really recommend founders to think about is, what is the right source of capital for you? What is the right strategy for building your business? Use that, follow that, and then work with the right partners to figure out what is the right immigration strategy based on what's organically happening with your business.
Themes of organic decision-making between both of you, which is very interesting. Xiao, many founders today and companies that are figuring out strategies for their companies to hire foreign talent are overwhelmed with different technologies and AI platforms and tools that are helping people put their own petitions together pretty much from start to finish, and saying you don't need an attorney to necessarily do a lot of this or bring this petition that's already been completed to an attorney. What do you think about this right now, and how is Boundless actually leveraging AI internally? Are other firms doing this? Can you talk about some trends in the space and what people should be looking out for actually doing this right?
Yeah, I love the proliferation of avenues for people, right? Before, I think of this as if any of you been to Asia and you have vertical malls, right? And before, there was only two options. You can find some random person on the street who may or may not know what they're doing, or you go to the top floor of the mall and you get this deluxe Gucci experience. And now, especially with the proliferation of AI and support, it's there's many different avenues to this mall, or many different floors, right? With different types of services. And so, as with everything that's new, there are services that are more effective than others, depending on your situation. And so it's important for people to think about, both for themselves and for their companies, around what matters to them. Right? And for some cases, it's I need speed, and that's what's important, right? I'm willing to pay whatever money, and then you speed. There's other folks that's I want to trade off being handheld through the process with working on it through my own, by myself. There are people who are I need access to a person that I want to talk to all the time, versus folks that are I'm happy to work through a checklist on an app. And so there's different elements here around what matters to you, with the ultimate goal of how you actually get to achieve your goals. And same thing with as you're then building your company, you're also probably, a lot of immigrant founders tend to hire immigrant employees, right? Either from where they're from or from their circles. And it's also important to think about, like, hey, what do you want out of that? There's probably a lot of acquired podcast listeners in this room. One of the things that they hammered home, there's a Bezos truism, is like do what makes only spend time on what makes your beer taste better, right? And I think that applies here for immigration, where, like, especially those who are familiar with it feel like, you actually have to become immigration experts. And we talked to countless founders and companies who are like, I have to know all the details around this. And it's like, does that really help your beer better? Make your beer, right? Like, is that helping you build a better product? Is that helping you build your better, deliver a better customer experience? And so try to think about, like, what you can actually let go of, right? Because the right partner that can grow with you, that can adapt with you, that can help you make these trade-off decisions, right, around what's important to you, and then be able to take that mental load off, becomes the lens that I want more people to think about. Because ultimately, the idea of you spending your time trying to become an immigration expert yourself, and a lot of people have gotten to the point where they can, like, basically be their own immigration lawyer, is probably time that you can be better spent on, building your dream. Right? That is not, and the immigration is just a means to you being able to achieve that dream.
Is there, I love the optionality, of course, and the idea of, the idea that people can chart their own path and choose and prioritize is idealistically amazing. But we're in a time when people really can't take risks, right? When it comes to their petition and the quality of their petition. So thinking about that, does that change how you are advising folks to prioritize, speed versus quality? Like, is this the time to prioritize speed, or is this a time when you really have to say, timelines are longer than they used to be, but you have to spend the time because RFE rates are skyrocketing? So
Q1 to Q2 this year, the general framework for people was to prioritize speed. You may have seen it, like, tons of organizations like, in 4 months you can get an EB1, in 6 months. And they were like, hey, let's accelerate and get things done. Between about July and then really accelerating in September, the government has said, hey, that doesn't work for us, and we're going to add additional RFEs, additional noise, or notice of intention to deny, like all these other, gates along the way. And so I think that there needs to be a reset right now among the, highly skilled community around, hey, it's important to do this, I'm going to call it the right way, or important to do it so that you maximize your chance of success on that first submission. And that takes, some counseling, because people are, urgent, right? They need to, and so there are different avenues. Right? If you think of from the tech, how do you take things into your own hands, right? Instead of the employer just H-1B perm route from before, there are J-1 STEM programs. There's cap exempt H-1B programs. There are O1s. There's EB2 NIWs. There's EB1A. There's a whole slew of avenues for which different people with different backgrounds can take their immigration journey into their own hands. But it is important to pick the right one for you and be honest about it, and give yourselves the highest chance of being successful in it, which necessitates being more patient. And that's a hard thing to say to people.
It definitely is. And people, with increased RFEs have had to really experience that, and it can be painful, but it is part of the nature of what's going on right now, and having the right guidance along that way, and feeling confident that you didn't take a big risk on leveraging probably just a platform that submitted this almost entirely for you, and knowing that you worked with the right people on this is quite helpful.
And by the way, the anecdote is the worst thing that happens here, right? Because there's such a randomness to your adjudicator, right? We see countless cases here where it's like a case that we feel like is wrong, doesn't get through, and the case that we're like, this doesn't make any sense, gets through. And so undoubtedly all of you hear anecdotes of someone you're like, wait, I am way more senior than that person got,
Right.
You're like, and that may change, and I just want to make sure that people be cognizant that the exception doesn't make the rule, and just because there's a high degree of variability doesn't mean that, like, oh, you can pick the least qualified of your friends who are successful and assume that that's the bar that you need to meet.
Right. Düden, you're dealing with folks once they get the approval and they're going to the consulates. And when we talk about risk mitigation, which, we're talking about risk mitigation through picking the right attorneys and choosing the right platforms and taking things into your own hands, what does it look like? What does risk mitigation look like right now at the consulates? What are you telling people that they should be thinking about when they go to get their visa stamp?
Danielle, I'm going to pick on you if you don't mind. But I love the fact that you use the wordage visa stamping. If there is anything you can take away from today, it is to never use those words to a visa officer. Visa officers are not people who just stamp your passport. They hate being referred to in those terms. You have to kind of remember that this is probably the very first time that you're engaging with a U.S. government official with regards to your entire application, right? Whether that's your petition or your visa application, a lot of it is paper-based until you were face-to-face with a visa officer. And so if you go into that visa interview and you're like, I got this, my petition was approved, this is in the bag, I'm just here for my visa stamp, officer. That is the wrong way to start that visa interview. If I can make a gentle recommendation, it is really to go in and say, good morning, officer. I'm here because my petition was approved by USCIS, and I am doing X, Y, Z, and I'm here to apply for my visa. That is a wonderful way of mitigating any potential risk, because it also highlights to the officer that you understand how much power they hold. And that is the truth of the matter. They do hold a lot of power. They hold a lot of power to potentially make you wait for months. Even if they can't deny your visa, right? Let's take the H-1B as an example. Under the law, the visa H-1B cannot be denied under Section 214B of the U.S. Immigration and Nationality Act. If you've ever applied for a B-1, B-2, you know that that is one very common denial. Same thing for a student visa or a J visa. H-1Bs cannot, by law, be denied under 214B, but they can be delayed for many, many, many months under Section 221G. And now there is a memo, apparently a cable that was sent, and I have not seen this cable, but I've seen reports about it, talking about how H-1B visas and O-1 visas can potentially be denied under Section 3A2 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. Now, you're going to be like, what the heck is that? 3A2 is a denial category that is normally reserved for the mafia and those engaged in criminal activities. So, this is kind of what I'm talking about, right? Going in, those 240 seconds are so critical that if you go in with the right attitude and the right approach and you don't have any issues that you're worried about, you're going to be great. You're going to get that visa approved. But if you go in and you're not as well prepared as you should be, you really risk throwing the whole thing off the rail. The last thing I will say with regards to this is, preparation is not just for that one visa, right? Immigration is a long journey. I'm currently a citizen. I wasn't one when I moved to the U.S., and I worked as a U.S. diplomat. So my journey was a very long journey. And so if you are an immigrant founder, your journey is going to be a long journey. Now, that entire journey is a marathon. And one thing that you should really be focused on is preparing an immigration binder. A binder with all of your DS-160s, DS-260 if you apply for an immigrant visa. You really should keep copies of everything you ever submit to the U.S. government. And this didn't used to be that important until this administration. Today we're seeing people who are applying for citizenship whose DS-160s are getting pulled from 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, and they're finding discrepancies and finding reasons to deny citizenship applications. So if there's anything, preparation, just like your journey, is a long-haul game, and you really need to go in understanding, what it is that you're doing, and preparing at every stage and ensuring that you have an entire and complete record. It's not just that the US government has an entire and complete record of your immigration journey. You need to own that. You need to own your own journey. You are in the driver's seat. Don't let the government be in the driver's seat of your immigration journey. As much as possible, take ownership of your immigration journey.
I love that. Taking ownership is so important right now, and getting involved, and also surrounding yourself with people who are going to help you prepare for that interview and give that kind of insight to you or to your employees. If you're hiring for national employees and you're bringing them on board and you're trying to grow your team, so important. There's also a lot going on right now in the news about the, more scrutiny in terms of communications and cell phones. And I think it's worth just talking about that in the context of how companies should be preparing for increased scrutiny and increased compliance right now, and the role that foreign nationals have to play in their own compliance structure. And folks should be thinking about how to track their own, public access files, et cetera, or what should founders be thinking about when it comes to actually ensuring that they don't fall into one of these traps where everything goes right and then it comes down to compliance or a cell phone being, text messages, right? Because you've worked so hard on navigating this entire immigration journey. For it to come down to that is so devastating. So Yana and Xiao, maybe, both of you could just briefly give us some perspective on that.
Well, I would start with recruiting, right? So you are in the process of recruiting some foreign nationals. So you don't ask a lot of questions. Like probably a couple of questions will do. What status are you on? And do you need visa sponsorship? And then lean on us as early as possible, right? So immigration specialists who can help you and document all this journey, the process, document it properly. Some visas have to be more heavily documented, like H-1B with public access file and a lot of compliances and posting notices, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a lot of to be said, and I love it, and ownership of your own case, but please also think about compliance. And this is, I'm pretty much talking not about the beneficiary, but the founders, the company, the petitioner who has to document this journey and keep in compliance with different agencies, and not just USCIS, but also Department of Labor, and then Department of State, et cetera, et cetera. So that's very important. Well, I guess that would be my piece of advice at the very beginning. Yeah, go ahead.
Two really quick things. First is, your HR team is not going to know all of the nuances of what's going on, right? So as you're thinking about who you're using for your company and so forth, it's like pick a partner who can actually provide that immigration strategy to your team and your employees directly, and not rely on the HR team to try to have a Google News alert about everything that's going on in immigration. So that's part one. Part two, for all of you, we still have countless examples of people omitting things when they actually work with us on their immigration applications, right? Like the time for trying to hide things is kind of over, right? And so the more clear and sort of honest you can be with the people who are trying to help you, the lower the chance of there being last minute surprises that completely derail your situation.
Notice that no one on this panel tonight said anything about doors being closed to America. No one has said don't start your company. No one has said don't go to your visa appointment. No one has said don't work with an attorney to figure this out. There are ways to do this right. The doors are not closed to coming and building your company here, but everybody here said find the right champions and find the right people and find the right solutions to ensure that you are setting yourself up for success. And that's really the key with compliance, which is not the sexy topic, but has to be talked about because it's really what some of this does come down to. And it's the reality with even figuring out from the beginning how to plan ahead and get ahead of the process, because so much of this does come down to, in the moment when your visa is expiring, have you thought through a plan B and C, and do you have champions in your corner? So I think that's really an amazing takeaway from everyone here on the panel. And I want to end with something actionable for everyone. So all of our panelists have come from different angles tonight, and you all do very different work. But from your angle, what is something you hope that folks will start to do tomorrow that you feel is something that has, bothered you, or something that you feel like you want people to really take away and change?
I would just say surround yourself with people who know what they're doing. It really will help you throughout your life.
That can apply to everything in life. I actually think this is a really great arbitrage opportunity for you as an employer, as a company. So, I talk to Fortune 500 companies every day right now who are saying, we're pausing immigration, right? We're pausing sponsorship. We're pausing because they're nervous about these changes. And so this is similar to what happened when the pandemic and remote hiring and this is your chance as a small, nimble company or to actually attract really great talent. Right? Again, with the right strategy, with the right partner, et cetera. But there are going to be a lot more people available this next year because of the fear that has slowed down all these bigger companies. And here's your chance to bring on that superstar who can't get a job offer from companies that previously would have jumped at them in a heartbeat.
And be realistic, right? Always have that strategy, always have plan B. O1 is not the only non-immigrant visas. There are other life on other planets, like there are intracompany transferees, non-immigrant investor visas, etc. Talk to us, and let's find a good strategy together. Because that's a little bit different situation from even 2-3 years ago.
I think the U.S. can't afford to lose immigrant entrepreneurs. This is truly the reason why the U.S. is the U.S. today. Why the Bay Area still attracts just brilliant talent. So definitely, all of us here on this stage, we're all testaments to that as well, with our own unique stories. And so, if this is a part of your entrepreneurial journey, if the American dream is a part of it, definitely go forth, pursue it. I would also say, however, have a plan B or a plan C and a plan D. And that may not necessarily be here in America. I talked to a lot of Indians at another conference that I was at, and they're talking about, the idea of potentially moving back to India. I think we all need to be open to different possibilities and options. There is never one way of doing something. And sometimes timelines don't match up. But, if this is something you really want to pursue, figure it out the right way. Plan your journey as much as you can, and don't ignore your family. One of my cases just yesterday that emailed me said they renewed their own H-1B but forgot to renew their wife and child's H-4. Just be on top of things, because you can't live here without your family. So if you need to go seek help before problems become problems. Come to us before you get a visa denial. Come when everything is perfect and you're so excited about your journey, so we can ensure that you can go on that same trajectory. If you do run into problems, we're also here for you. But ideally, let's prevent them before they occur.
Thank you all. And I think this is, for everyone here, we want you to know, as a group of people who really care, not to drown in the noise. And it can be really hard these days, but we are all here and our companies are all here to ensure that you can continue to build. So please come find us. And thank you so much to our hosts for having us here today to talk through this. And thank you all for what you do.